It's your man Kdot, and this is Sports Talking Whatever on Monday, August the 28th, here in the mid morning. Not too early, but not late morning either. I do have some sports topics that I want to weigh in on, particularly events from this past weekend. I'm going to start with the NFL really quickly. Um, so, obviously, it's the preseason. During this week of the preseason, right before the end of the preseason, the week before the last game of the preseason, the teams are actually starting to put their projected regular rosters out on the field to play, 2 quarters, maybe three. So we saw some of the main players, even some players that hadn't played all preseason out there, play this weekend. A couple of games particularly caught my attention. I was watching the New England versus Detroit game, and the Patriots were just clobbering the Lions for a good portion of the game. And Tom Brady, for a quarter or two, was looking like he was in Super Bowl form. The Lions actually came back, later in the game, the backups and stuff were in. Lions came back and took the lead, and the Patriots um, won with a field goal at the end. But the major news, of course, is Julian Edelman, the receiver, getting hurt, and it's an ACL injury, and that normally means season over. So it looks like that's going to be a big injury for the Patriots. They've dealt with it before. Obviously, he's one of their top players, particularly at wide receiver. But I remember last year when they got Rob Gronkowski hurt, and remember he was looked at as the most unstoppable tight end or whatever in the NFL. A lot of people looked at him as the number one target or number one non-quarterback player, all types of accolades, and he obviously is a terrific player. And he got hurt, and he was out. And the Patriots was like, all right. And they went on to win the Super Bowl anyway. So they're a team that deals with injuries very, very well. They always have players that are willing to step up. So Edelman is out. All that means is that there's going to be another player that's going to step up more than likely, and get some more time to play and probably be productive, particularly with Brady throwing him the ball. So that was that game. I saw the game between the Jets and the Giants, and that was another game that was a beatdown early on. The Giants, I think it was 3-29 at halftime, and the Jets came back, down the stretch, and I think they missed a 2 point, maybe it was a 2 point play, or at the end of the game they ended up losing by like 1 point. But it was, it was. I saw a couple of highlights. It was fun to watch, to try to see the Jets, who look like they're going to be a really bad team. For a little bit of entertaining preseason football. One more that I saw that was really good, and this was not one of those blowout games. It was just good back and forth the entire game. One between San Francisco and Minnesota. And the 49ers were up early. The Vikings came back. They kind of went back and forth throughout the game. It was pretty entertaining. I think it was the Sunday night feature game, so it's national broadcast, and it was really good. It was really good. The Vikings came back, scored a touchdown with no time left on the clock, and they were still down by 1 point, and then they came and went for the 2 point conversion and hit it with no seconds on the clock. So they had the 2 point play, to end the game one way or the other, and they ended up scoring to beat the 49ers. Again, the result doesn't really matter. It's a preseason game. It was pretty entertaining. A lot of big plays on both sides, long touchdowns and things in that game, and a lot of it was by the backups. A lot of the action was in the second half with the backups in the game. So guys trying to make the team, guys trying to get those last roster spots. So it was pretty good. Overall, teams are really starting to shape themselves together. Now we're coming up on the final preseason game for all teams. I think everyone is in action on Thursday. So that's going to be the end of the preseason, and then teams will have to establish their official rosters of their 53 players that are going to make the team, and then some practice squad players also. So that's going to be the next thing up for the NFL as they wrap up the preseason and get ready for the real deal. A little NBA news. Last time I was on, I weighed in on the big trade between Cleveland and Boston involving Kyrie Irving, Isaiah Thomas, etc. And some new news have come in. That the actual agreed upon trade isn't the end of the story. So now there's some concern, apparently, from the Cavaliers bringing in Isaiah Thomas from Boston about his injury. He had a hip injury that apparently is lingering, and is giving Cavaliers some second thoughts about bringing in Isaiah Thomas. And now they're reportedly going to seek to get another additional asset in the trade. As to what that is, it hasn't been made clear just yet. I imagine that the trade is still going to go through, despite the injury. You evaluate him, do the physical, whatever, and then get him on the court when it's time to. If I'm the Cavaliers, I do see how bringing in an injured player can be a problem, especially when you just trade away Kyrie Irving. But you get him cleared, you run him through the physical with your doctors, and get him out there when he's ready to roll. And the Cavaliers have the right to ask for more in the trade. Say, hey, you traded us an injured player. You gave us a little bit less than what we expected in terms of his health. And because of that, you're going to have to chip in with something extra on this trade, or the Cavaliers apparently have the right to veto the trade. I don't see that having any chance of happening. They either went through too much to try to get it to happen, and they're not going to be bringing Kyrie Irving back. I don't see that happening. So I think that Irving is going to remain with the Celtics. The trade will go through as expected, but more than likely Boston will have to put in maybe another draft pick. I'd imagine probably like a second-round pick. Just something else to give Cleveland more in the deal. They already gave, in my opinion, Cleveland a whole lot in the deal to get Kyrie Irving in the first place. So, another second-round pick is not going to be a big deal, but anything beyond that, Boston going to more than likely be like, get out of here. We gave y'all everything y'all going to get. Take the second-round pick and get out of here. That's my imagine what Boston's position is on it. If I'm Cleveland, honestly, to get an extra asset, get an extra piece in the trade is nice, but they really made out well. As I talked about this on my last video, they really made out pretty well as is. And if you're Cleveland, okay, Isaiah Thomas is hurt, but as long as it's not a career-ending injury, you get him out there. You don't rush him back. You let him heal if he's hurt, if he needs surgery, whatever it is. You let the hip heal, and then you get him out there when you need to. They're not bringing it. I'm imagining you got LeBron James, who's going to the NBA Finals now for, I think, 7 years in a row. 3 of those was with Cleveland. So now they're going to try to get back to the Finals for the 4th year in a row. They've been, by far, the top team in the Eastern Conference. They're expected, in my view, to be the top team in the East again, at least come playoff time. In the regular season, Boston was number 1 in the East. Which brings me to something. I'm going to talk about that more in a minute. But Cleveland, you're expected to be among the top echelon. If you're not the number 1 record-wise, you're certainly expected to be number 1 come playoff time in the Eastern Conference. They're not bringing in Isaiah Thomas for his unbelievable regular season only, play. Obviously, he had a big season last year in the regular season and played well in the playoffs also. Dealt with amazing tragedy with his sister's death. And, and remember, and dealt with injury as well. Had a tooth knocked out. It was a rough playoffs for him last year. So, I say all this to say that when you're in Cleveland and you're already an established team that's trying to play for a championship, you're not bringing in Isaiah Thomas so that he can boogie in November and December. You want him down the stretch. You want him in the late part of the season and into the playoffs. So if he has an injury, he got to sit out a portion of the season. If I'm the Cavaliers, that's not that big of a deal. They proved it last year. They admitted that they didn't care about the regular season. They admitted. Sat players out. LeBron, they admitted it. They don't care about this regular season. They even let Boston get y'all can have the number 1 spot. Yeah, no problem. We'll settle in at number 2 and still crush y'all in the playoffs. So Cleveland their whole attitude says to me that this should not be that big of a concern. Now, if they're saying he can't play at all, okay, that's a big concern. But if it's just a matter of him being hurt, okay, let him heal. Let him rehab. Let him go to surgery, whatever he needs necessary. Bring him in after the All-Star break or however long he needs to be out. And let him boogie down the stretch and then on into the playoffs. That's why I brought him here in the first place. So if I'm the Cavaliers, I don't think it shouldn't be that big of a deal in my view. If I'm the Cavs, I still want Isaiah Thomas, and if you got to sit out, let him sit out. Shoot, they can even put in Derrick Rose. They just acquired him. Okay, Derrick, you're gonna start for a while. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. It really don't matter when you're the Cavs. You're going to be up at or near the top in the East regardless. Let Derrick Rose play for a while, let him start, or let someone else start, and then bring Isaiah Thomas back when he's ready. So that's how I see that. But something else that dawned on me while I was talking about this, I got to tell you, out of all the teams that the Cavs, out of all the teams that the Cavs traded Kyrie, they traded him to it just for them trading him to the Celtics. It sunk in a little bit. I don't know if it's LeBron or just the Cavaliers front office or franchise in general, but they all respect Kyrie Irving as a guy that gets carry a franchise on the back. That's very obvious. Wow, they didn't trade him to a low-level team, Nets, Knicks, Suns, whatever. They gave him to the team that was, first of all, already ahead of Cleveland in the standings last year. And the team that was right there, in the Eastern Conference Finals. So the team that's the closest to dethroning them as the Eastern Conference champs or the kings of the Eastern Conference, per se. They traded they traded one of their star players right to that team. So they have apparently no confidence that Kyrie Irving can carry a franchise on their back. They gave us, we're going to give you a team that was already ahead of us. Understand? They don't even respect Kyrie, not as a franchise player, apparently. Wow. That's amazing. I didn't really, I thought about it while I was talking about it today. I didn't really think about when I was more so thinking about the assets in the trade, how the teams look now. I'm thinking about, wow, Cleveland just have total disregard on Kyrie apparently carrying a franchise by them trading him to a team that is right, potentially in their way of another trip to the finals, and apparently didn't even care. Okay, Kyrie's with them. Let's see how that works out for them. And if you're a Celtics fan, make no mistake about it. Assuming that the trade goes through as planned and there's no veto or anything like that due to the injury to Isaiah Thomas, when the Celtics bring in Kyrie Irving, he's the man. Yeah, y'all got Al Horford and Jaylen Brown and these young players, Tatum. They just brought in Gordon Hayward. Regardless of all that, Kyrie Irving is the man for the Celtics. And if they aren't successful, they're going to be looking at Kyrie Irving. That's the bottom line. Remember, they were already number one in the East, record-wise, this past season. So if they don't remain number one or remain towards the top of the East, and they're not back in the Eastern Conference Finals, going up against the Cavs or whomever, yeah, it's just going to be a defeat of Kyrie Irving. And this is what he wanted. He wanted to be the man. He wanted to be, have the franchise on his back. And this year, he's going to learn how that feels. Can he handle it or not? That remains to be seen. But the Cavaliers, by trading him to the Celtics, clearly say that they don't think he can do it. They have no confidence that he's going to be able to get the job done. So that was very interesting. I thought about it. They don't even respect Kyrie Irving, or not as the man. So we'll see how that turns out. It's going to make for some intriguing matchups, particularly going up in the season opener. Kyrie returning to Cleveland, apparently for the first game of the season. That's going to be good. And throughout the season, whenever they match up with one another, it's obviously going to be must-see television. It'll be interesting to see the other matches when they happen. Will everybody be playing? Because folks sit out. Will Isaiah Thomas be on the court by the time we hit the season opener? That's going to be interesting. Cleveland is going to look different, without Kyrie. But whether Isaiah Thomas is playing or not could be a factor. So we'll see, depending on his injury and how serious it is, and will it prevent him from playing. So that's something to look into. That's going to be fun. I'm going to be keeping up on that as the story goes along. If anything else changes in terms of the trade, can the Cavaliers get anything extra? Will the injury be so serious that the trade can be vetoed altogether? So that's something to keep an eye on. Also, obviously, the big event overall for the weekend was in boxing, the money fight as they build it, with Money himself, Floyd Mayweather Jr., going up against as Bill the Notorious Conor McGregor coming over from MMA. And I had the pleasure of sitting down and watching. If I actually watched the whole show, so there were some other fights as well. I saw the one fight with I want to say his name was Gervonta Davis, and he was going up against another fight, and they both were undefeated, I believe. And Davis won, but it was a questionable win. He actually was just winning the fight, boxing and everything. But he hit his opponent behind the head, kind of hit him with an illegal punch, which dropped the guy, and the guy didn't get up. So Davis wins by knockout, but it was a questionable call. The fans were booing; they weren't really happy with how he won, and he didn't even deny it. He was like, "Listen, it wasn't a legal punch, but I had already beat him up before the knockout," which was true. He had already done some damage. He had his opponent hurt. It's just that the way it finished, fans weren't feeling him, and he's a big-time prospect that's trying to get some buzz behind him, and this fight did not help his cause. And that was just something else I watched during the night. Obviously, that wasn't what the night was about. It was about Mayweather, McGregor. There was so much hype, so much money, so much put into this big event, with the celebrities being there and all of that, all of the hype leading up to the fight. And my opinion on it is, first of all, the fight went fairly as I predicted. It was longer than a lot of people thought. It was about as long as I thought it was going to be. I thought that there was a good chance that, they'll let the fight go on for a while, in case there was anything beyond this, any money beyond this to be made. That was my view on it. But having actually watched the fight went a little bit differently than I thought in terms of Mayweather getting hit more than I expected. McGregor did very well for himself, in my view. I was very surprised. I mean, in an actual boxing match, there's a couple times his MMA instincts kicked in, and he had a couple of back of the head punches. Obviously, they're illegal hits, but wasn't anything like devastating. But you just saw him kind of go into that mode where he was doing almost like the ground and pound thing that he does. When you have a fighter down in the octagon. So you saw him kind of the instinct kicking, and the ref had to come in. Wait, remember, they're still boxing. So and the referee, Robert Byrd, he's like a Hall of Fame referee. And he was in there and he ran down the instructions. He took like 5 minutes to explain. This is a boxing match. This is not wrestling. This is not MMA. We're going by boxing rules. He had to hit sway for a while. He took so long, the crowd started booing for a second. Like, hold on, you're taking too long. The rule. We know what the rules is. Ring the bell and get started. So, but it turned out to be a much better event than a lot of people thought it would be. A much better fight than a lot of people anticipated. It was, and for a Mayweather fight, it's as entertaining as it gets, because Mayweather has not had entertaining fights over the years, particularly recently. Even Pacquiao, the hype was the fact that we saw this matchup that we wanted to see for so long, but the fight was awful itself. This fight was actually an entertaining fight. We saw McGregor getting far more hits than I expected. I mean, I think numerically, like the stats that they calculated, I believe that McGregor got more punches in than Pacquiao did for the whole fight. That is amazing. And Pacquiao was a world-class boxer and could not hit Mayweather as many times as McGregor did, due to a couple things. One, McGregor was far better than expected. Mayweather even admitted that McGregor fought better than he expected. And the other was, Mayweather, you know what? He wasn't as fast, as quick on his feet as we've normally seen. Father Time, they say, is undefeated. And, Money Mayweather coming in at 40 years old, having not fought in 2 years. He was a little slower. Got hit with more punches. McGregor was very, unorthodox is the good word to use in terms of his angles and the way he moved around the ring. He didn't move like a traditional boxer because he isn't one, obviously. So he had different movements that Mayweather needed some time, and I think anyone would need some time to get used to. He did weird things where he would slip behind Mayweather, and Mayweather be turned the wrong direction, all types of things. Mayweather, it took him some time. McGregor had weird movements and angles and things. which suited him well, throughout the fight. He made him a little bit more difficult to hit and allow him to get in some more hits than a traditional boxer, would get against Money Mayweather. So McGregor did very well for himself in that regard. Did not in any way tarnish his legacy. He actually, I think, got more respect from people in boxing and in MMA. In my view, I think he got even more respect than he had already had as a world class fighter. He got some jabs in, which was really good. Got some good jabs in, and he's not going to be able to be defensive. He don't know how to survive defensively as a boxer because he's never been one. So when Mayweather finally started dialing in and unloading some punches on him, McGregor was in trouble. And I think that early in the fight he did well with his jab. Mayweather wasn't really throwing a lot of punches. Maybe the first 3 rounds I thought was in McGregor's favor before Mayweather started taking over. Then by the time he hit the late rounds, 9 and 10 was really dominant. That's when Mayweather started unloading and started hitting some good, clean shots, unanswered. And Mayweather just took over. McGregor didn't have any answers for him. And he finally, got the technical knockout in the 10th round. Never dropped him, which was interesting. And afterwards, McGregor kind of complained, like, ref, you kind of stopped a little early. At least let him drop me before you stop the fight. I see it from both sides. I was okay with McGregor's case that, hey, I was tired, but I was still in the fight. At least let him drop me. And we've seen a situation where, a guy gets dropped and he was getting beat up so bad that the referee just like, all right, it's over. Like, I'm not even going to count, fight over. You got dropped. Even if you do get up, I'm not letting this fight continue. So it's just over. I'm not going to count to 10. It's over. It could have been that situation. I could have seen that happening. But I'm also okay. I'm okay with the fact that the fight ended the way it ended as well. Because from boxing rules, not MMA rules. From MMA rules, you let a guy fight a little bit longer, especially until he gets knocked to the ground until he's almost defenseless. In boxing, they have a thing you call out on your feet, where the point you're just getting hit and punched and you're not being able to defend yourself and you're not throwing any punches. And that's what happened to McGregor. He was just getting hit that whole round, unanswered. He wasn't getting any hits in, and it came to the point where he wasn't even throwing any punches. He was just completely retreating, going backwards and getting punched in the face. And, the referee stepped in and said, all right, that's it. That's it. So I was fine with the stoppage. Mayweather closed the show as you would expect a great boxer to do, and pretty much closed his career. It was a different fight than we've really ever seen from Mayweather. He was moving forward. He was the aggressor, as he should be against a guy that's not a boxer. But it's just we're so used to him being defensive and a counterpuncher and elusive and light on his feet and quick and, using his defense and his quickness as his asset rather than being aggressive. In this one, he was aggressive, got hit more, which is what happens when you're an aggressive, fighter, which he isn't. But when you're, I guess, fighting an aggressive fight, I should say, he got hit more, but he was able to hit some power shots. And as usual, his accuracy didn't go anywhere. He was equally as accurate as he is in any fight he fights, and got some really, really good hits late in the fight and finished off with the knockout. And congratulations to Money Mayweather. What an incredible career. He breaks the record. He goes 50-0 for his boxing career. He said that, this is going to be his final fight. He said in the post-fight interview, this is it. I absolutely do see it as it. I thought that maybe they would want to rematch this or, try to make some more money. The way he looked slower. He got hit a lot more. And this is against a guy that's not a traditional boxer. And, it took him 10 rounds to finish him off. Which he finished him. But it looked like it's over. You don't want to step in the ring with none of these young guns. Terrence Crawford is one that comes to mind. That you don't want to step in the ring with one of some of these young boys and try to go 12 rounds with them. It's not going to turn out good for you. So I think he's retiring. He has the record. I think he's retiring at a good time. He has his legacy sealed and an unbelievable, Hall of Fame career. I think this is it for him. I think it should be it for him. And one of Mayweather's monikers or whatever is TBE, best ever, right? And I thought about that. I'm like, best boxer ever? I'd say no. Best fighter, of course not. But you know what? The fight game, I'm saying yes. I think he was the best ever at the fight game. And they call him Money Mayweather. And he made more money than anybody. He had the biggest fights. He was the biggest attraction. He picked his opponents wisely. He was selective. He didn't take a lot of risks, whether it be a risky fight or being risky in the midst of a fight. He took barely no punishment. He didn't suffer any knockouts. He didn't suffer any losses. And I believe he flawlessly played the fight game. He was certainly TBE, the best ever at that, in my view. And now, we move on. Now, who's the man going to take over? There got to be a man. There got to be a number one guy in boxing that's going to be the main attraction. You think about Manny Pacquiao, how he could have certainly been that, but Pacquiao's toward the end of his career and has not looked good in his fights. Matter of fact, didn't Pacquiao just lose the last fight? I believe he did. Like one of those fights that he should not have lost, but lost. And we've had that happen a couple of times in his career. So Pacquiao is out of the question in terms of, I think, being the main attraction. Now we got the next big fight coming up with Canelo Alvarez going up against Gennady Golovkin, Triple G. And that's a monster. That's the next big monster fight. Maybe whoever wins that will be the man. It could be that both of those seem to be big attraction. Particularly Canelo, I think, is a bigger attraction than Triple G right now, because Canelo's had more bigger fights, having faced, like, I think, Sugar Shane, obviously Money Mayweather in his career. So he's had some bigger fights and against bigger opponents than Golovkin. Triple G, this is his big fight that night coming up against Canelo. So maybe to win that fight, me personally, my choice for the man that should take over or may take over is Andre Ward. I think he's the number one man in boxing and should be the number one attraction. He's had some issues outside of the ring that I think have slowed his career down a little bit, but he's undefeated. He's been tremendous, and he beat Kovalev, Sergey Kovalev. He beat him in 2 fights for the light heavy. He's like the unified light heavyweight champion is Andre Ward now. So I think he's the guy that can and should take over as the top attraction in boxing. We'll see what happens. Kovalev is tough. I remember watching Kovalev in a fight that he had against Jean Pascal. I think they fought twice, but particularly that second time, he was just, how you could punish a guy. We've seen guys get punished, but when you was beating that guy down so bad, not only did his people have to stop the fight, Kovalev was beating him up bad enough not to knock him out, but still just inflicting punishment. He was just taking his time, didn't go for the knockout intentionally. He admitted after the fight, I didn't even want to knock him out. I wanted to make him suffer. I wanted to make him suffer as much as possible. I think they had some beef, or he was talking trash or something, and he said, I wanted to just make the guy suffer. I just want to punish him. He perfectly didn't knock him out. Just took his time for, I think, 7 rounds of just brutal hits, but hit him hard enough not to knock him out. Well, soft enough, per se, not to knock him out, but hard enough to keep the pain going, but still let up just a little bit. Don't go for the kill. Let him survive. Let him still throw some punches so that they don't stop the fight, so I can punish him some more. That was his attitude. That was vicious. And this is the guy that Ward came in and beat not once but twice. The second time was a knockout victory, which was kind of controversial, but Ward got the victory nonetheless. And I think should be the man to take over as a top attraction in boxing. We'll see if that happens. We'll see what happens with Canelo Alvarez versus Triple G. One of them could be the big man in town, and we have some up-and-comers as well, that could take over. Terrence Crawford is one man I think about. Mentioned earlier, who's serious. Keith Thurman, another one. And these cats are undefeated and doing their things in their weight classes. So we'll see what happens. Boxing can possibly be exciting. We have a lot of people, just not including, the heavyweights. Wilder, I believe, is still undefeated. Joshua, who just won the heavyweight championship, beat Klitschko. So we got guys that are undefeated, that are strong, that have put on some good fights, and somebody got to take over. So we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be exciting for boxing moving forward. I surely hope it is. As a sport that I like, and I think it can be entertaining. And I think this event, Mayweather and McGregor, I think the event really, really, really lived up to the hype. The Pacquiao Mayweather was a total disappointment, we know. This one made up for it. Mayweather said that he wanted to finish the show and make up for the Pacquiao fight. I think this event certainly lived up to the hype, actually. It lived up to the hype, and I think fans feel like, for the most part, they got their money's worth. You see a knockout, you saw guys really go at it, and you saw a good fight. And, you know, you got what you paid for pretty much, I believe, in this fight. And that's good for boxing and good for MMA and just good for the fight game in general. So we're going to wrap it up for now. Next time I'm on, I do want to talk about the rest of the remainder, I guess, of the preseason of the NFL and see what the teams look like going into the regular season. Maybe preview what's going on in the regular season in the NFL and follow up on what happens with the NBA. What's going to happen with this trade? Is it going to go through? Is it going to be vetoed? Are there going to be any changes to it? What's going to happen there? So there's more to talk about coming up. But for now, we'll say goodbye, and I'll catch you next time. Peace and blessings.